going on, everybody? This is Shane Haller. I'm here at elitefts, and today we're just going to be going over a couple of little quick things that I do as far as warm-up wise, mobility wise. I get a lot of questions as far as what I do for like hip mobility and just how I'm flexible and stuff with my wide stance squats. So I'll kind of walk you through a little bit of the warm-ups I do for that, and then maybe we'll get into some squatting here, kind of show you a little bit of tips that I use with that and cues that I use to get that 925 world record squat. All right, so starting off, I do a 90-90 stretch, or a variation of that. So I will start out, and this is something I do like every day. Like, you can do this like getting right out of bed. You can do it, once you get to the gym, especially like after like long travel. Like the other day, I took a flight up here, drove right over, and then got right into squatting and stuff. So this is like my bread and butter kind of warm to make sure my hips are nice and loose, my back's feeling good, and everything's kind of working good for some squats. So I try and get my legs kind of like a 90-degree angle this way, that back leg 90-degree angle that way as well. And then I try and sit up about as much as I can. Now my mobility is not great, but for what I'm trying to do, like I can already kind of feel it already kind of loosening up here for me. So I'll try and sit up first as much as I can, just to kind of feel that little bit of back pressure and that back glute here. And I'll kind of just hold it for about 10-15 seconds. And it's not really like a hard stretch, like I'm feeling like a cramp or something like that's coming on, or everything's really, really tight, but it's just kind of like that nice little like release of pressure kind of deal. Like everything's nice and loose, kind of feeling everything opening up a little bit. And then from here, I'll take my elbow and I put it right on the top of my knee, and I twist over, take a big exhale, and then get down about as far as I can. Now again, my arm's not flat on the ground here. I'm not, my mobility is, I'm not super flexible, but for what I'm trying to do here, it's loosening everything up. I can feel this all in my lower back, right on this side of my back here and everything. Nice big stretch. And again, I'll try and hold this for about 10-15 seconds, just till I'm feeling nice and good, nice and loose. Then I come up, and then the next version of this, I will try and get my chest about as close to that heel of my foot as I can. And I'll just stretch forward here. Now this is gonna kind of be nice and stretching on the inside of my leg, inside of my hip. And I don't have to go very, very far to kind of really get that stretch feel here. So everything's nice and tight, but at the same time, like I said, it's kind of just that release of pressure, feeling nice and loose. So I'm kind of coming down here. Like I said, about 10-15 seconds, not too long. That's good. And then I'll come right back up. And then the last one I'm going to do is just over the front. It's the same thing. Just go about as far as I can, feeling the stretch in that glute area right here and that hip flexor area as well. I'm just going to try and get about as low as I can. Doesn't have to be super far, just until you feel that nice stretch, that release of pressure. I'm going to sit there and hold that for about 10-15 seconds. And that's it. And then I will just flip on over. I do the same thing for the other side. So like I said, when I'm doing this, there's really kind of 4 parts to it. I'm sitting up first, kind of get that stretch here, everything in the back, feeling a little bit in this back leg for just that initial part here. And when I'm coming over to the side, got a nice little pop there. Put that elbow on my knee here, that nice stretch. So everything on this side is opening up now. Just about 10-15 seconds. I like to hold it here. I'm going to come back up. Nice big breath. I'm already getting a nice little sweat going here. So it's warm-ups working good for you. And then I'm going to, like I said, I really try and get like my chest, belly button area. When I'm thinking it, I'm trying to get to my heel here. So I'm coming down, and like I said, you can feel that stretch all in here, all in that hamstring area, that hip flexor. Come down as far as you can. About 10-15 seconds. Come back up. And then I'm going to come over to the top here. Just go as low as I can. The side's a little bit better than that other side here. Just about 10-15 seconds. Feeling everything kind of just loosening up a little bit. And then we're good. Let's see, what else am I going to do from here? So then from here, I kind of do 3 other things to kind of get my core activated. I've had some back injuries in the past, herniated discs that kind of flare up from time to time if I'm not really staying on top of my core work and just kind of keeping my back nice and mobile and warmed up. So it's really kind of an important deal. Your warm-ups don't really necessarily have to be super long and drawn out. I've done warm-ups where, you're doing things for maybe 10, 15 minutes. I've done warm-ups as long as 40, 45 minutes if the issue is really bad. So I think specificity as far as, what you're trying to do that day is pretty important. So kind of feel everything out, but these are kind of like my key movements that I'm going to do at least every day that I'm going to be doing lower body work, whether it be pulls or squats. So I'll face this way here so you guys can see, but I start off doing some bird dogs. So I'll be here, keep my back in that nice flat position. I'm just going to stretch and down, stretch and down, and I'll rotate these. I'll probably do about 10 a side, so 20 total. And the whole time I'm doing these, I'm trying to keep my core nice and braced, nice and tight. So I don't want to be shifting from side to side as I'm moving. You want to try and keep your center line right here so it doesn't move as you're moving with your arms and your legs. So if I'm coming out here, my center line is not moving. And you can hear the tightness in my voice as I'm going up. You want to be bracing as you're doing that. So like I said, I'll hit about 10 a side here. Get a nice little stretch at the end. You don't want to just punch it out there and pull it back. Get a good stretch. And after I do those, I'll flip on over. I'll do some dead bugs. Same type of deal. I'm trying to get my core activated here. I want to kind of brace down. So when I brace, the idea should be to kind of get my back flat to the ground here. So that way you're activating your core. You don't want to just kind of be going through the motions with these. Everything kind of has a little bit of intention to it, a little bit of purpose. So I'm going to get my arms up. I'm going to feel that brace. Got a nice little pop there, so that's how you know you're doing it good. Really try and, like I said, brace here, but as you're doing that, you should feel your back flat to the ground. So as you're bracing here, you're creating that 360 pressure. Everything's going through. And then as that's braced, same thing as that bird dog on the other side. I'm going to stretch opposite arms and legs all the way out, hold it, then come back. Hold it, and come back. And as I'm doing that, I want to keep this pressure the entire time. So as I'm moving, my body's getting used to keeping that 360 brace throughout the entirety of it. So same thing as the bird dogs. I'll probably do about 10 of these aside, so 20 total. And again, I'm going to stick it. As I'm doing these, I don't want to just kind of go through the motions of it. Nice squeeze. Get in tension with it. And then from there, I'll flip on over here and I'll do just a couple planks, again, just to kind of get everything all primed up and ready. So I'll just do a standard plank. Same here, so I'm going to keep my back flat, nice and braced through my core. A little trick you can kind of do for that is you want to try and pull your elbows to your toes. And as I do that, it creates that internal tension in between my core here. I'm already kind of starting to shake, which is good. And I want to hold that for about 10 or 15 seconds. And then from there, I'm going to just put my arm right down here and immediately go into a side plank. Try to keep my elbow as high up as I can. Keep that hip high. And I'm going to hold that for about 10 or 15 seconds. I'll flip over. 10 or 15 seconds right here. Make it that last little bit right here. Squeezing in, like I said, pulling my elbows down to my toes. 10, 15 seconds right there. Now those are going to be kind of warm-ups I'm going to do, like I said, every lower body session, whether it be a squat day, a pull day, whatever. Those are always going to, and like I said, it seems pretty simple, but that's something that it doesn't take very long to do, and I can consistently do it where, like I said, it's going to keep my hips mobile, so I'm going to be able to squat without impingements due to immobility. My core is going to be nice and braced. My back's going to be ready to sit there and squat and take the load of the weights that I'm going to be moving and working with that day. and everything's just gonna be primed and ready for the day. So another one I'll kind of do that kind of helps with my hip flexors, whether it be a squat day or a pull day, I'll do a variation of like a split squat. And so you get like a bench right here. I'm not going to do like a full range of motion with these. It's more just like a lot of reps just to kind of get some blood in that area, but also kind of really start feeling, you know, just kind of loosening everything out here. So when I'm going to be at the bottom of the squat, that's typically where everything's going to be the tightest. So I want to just kind of get used to that motion. This is going to get my adductors nice and primed up here. Kind of get used to just really sinking down. And you can even hold this at the bottom. And it's going to stretch out everything in this quad here as well too, with that foot back up there. So I'll do that at the end of them. I'll switch. Same thing. Get a staggered stance here. I'm just going to kind of bounce a little bit. Now the range of motion, like I said, it doesn't have to be huge, but I can still feel that contraction in my hips here. I'm loosening everything up, getting nice and low. My adductors are feeling it a little bit in my quads here as well. That last one, I'll kind of get like a little bit of a stretch. Just come all the way down. Like I said, it's going to open up that hip flexor here. Feel it in my quad. You might get a little cramp on that back hamstring here. So if you got to come back up and reset, not a big deal. We feel that stretch. And I'm going to come on up. Now let's see what else we got. Another one I like to do would be, what are we going to call these? Cossack lunges. So I'll get nice and wide here. This is much wider than like my squat stance or my deadlift stance, but it allows me to get into the position. And again, this is going to kind of warm my hips up, but also my adductors too. Make sure those are nice and primed up. When I squat wide or I'm pulling wide, that's something that you really want to make sure is warmed up and mobile. If I'm stiff or anything else like that, you know, you're susceptible to like a cramp or something that would not be good while you're doing that, or a tear, you know, anything else like that. So you want to make sure that everything you're going to be using that day is nice and warmed up. So for these, I'm going to get nice and wide, fan my toes out, and then I'm just going to come all the way down to one side, and then I'm going to slide over to the other side. I'm just going to go back and forth like this. Just like with my split squats, my stretching or my warming up is not really going to be static. I like to do a lot of movement. So the range of motion doesn't have to be huge, but you want to do enough to really kind of feel like a little bit of a pump in the area that you're doing. So just bouncing back and forth like this, you can feel it. My adductors and my hips here, everything's nice and loose, just sliding back and forth, back and forth. And after I've done a couple of those, you can do a little bit of a higher version. I don't know what you would call these, but you would, instead of just sliding back and forth, you're going to come all the way up and lunge down to the other side. So I'll be down, up, down, up, down, up. And again, that's going to be a little more quads, but I'm still feeling that stretch in my adductors and my hips. And these are something, you know, I'll do 10 to 15, 20 if you're really, really feeling it. You want to get a little extra warm. Kind of just depends, like I said, depending on the day, what you feel like you need to be warmed up, or if you already feel like you're warmed up, you don't need to do as much. You know, you don't need to do any specific number, but as long as you're feeling nice and warmed up, feeling nice and loose and ready for what you got to do that day, and that's all you're going to need to do. And that would be it for the essential little hip exercises, warm-ups that I use consistently on my squat days that keep me feeling good, nice and fresh.